Hola, welcome back. My guest today is Zenia from Flor del Monte. She's an amazing florist here in the Chicago area. We also met via Instagram and connected because of the wedding industry. And I'm just so amazed at how social media can really bring people together. And if there ever was a time where I wish we had scratch and sniff capabilities through the internet, it's now. Because as a florist, you know that her studio is always smelling so fresh and beautiful. In this episode, she shares how she transitioned and built a thriving business with her mom, and how her family is the core of everything that she does. Please enjoy my conversation with Zenia from Flor del Monte. Hi, I'm so excited to have you here with me today. I know we've known each other for a while, but I'm talking to Zenia from Flor del Monte. She's the creative director of this amazing flower business in the Chicago area, and I'm so excited to dive deeper into her story and for her to share all of her wisdom and advice and journey with business building and just being a Latina woman in business with us today. So why don't you introduce yourself and tell me about your story? Like, how did it all start?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for reaching out. It's always awesome to chat with people you admire and people that you know you're in the same industry with, which is fantastic. So I'm Zenia from Flor del Monte. Flor del Monte is a Latina-owned business in Pilsen. We are a mother-daughter team. So my mother founded Flor del Monte about 18 years ago, and we've always been in Pilsen. And then I came on board not too long after and was like, kind of want to be your partner. And she thought I was crazy, and I might have been, I'm not sure. But I had no idea what I was in for. And I guess initially, what I had envisioned was breaking something like, growing up in Pilsen, most of the flower shops, not that I knew too many, but were the very like, here's a stuffed animal, here's some roses and some baby's breath, and that's fine. But I kind of was like, can there be more? What is more, right? And so I started kind of tapping into that, wanting to create a different experience here in Pilsen when it came to flowers. And yeah, we started, and it wasn't too long after I started and changing things up, bringing in new products, introducing ourselves to flowers, to varieties that we had no idea existed. And that was really exciting. But then shortly after, that's kind of like 2007, 2008, the economy crashed. Retail just took a massive dive. And we're in a community where flowers are a luxury. It's not a basic necessity. So if you were going to X something out, well, this is going to be one of the first things. And that's when I was like, oh my God, like, what are we going to do? And so we then transitioned into events, and within a very short time frame, it kind of just became the core business. We're like, oh, this kind of is really good. This works better. And I'm somebody who likes to have more control, have more like, okay, exactly what's going to happen. And with retail, you don't have that same control, and especially we're working with a product that has such a short, lifespan, that it fit my personality better, and we started focusing on that, and it started going really well. And you learn a lot along the way, and then we just decided, the retail part was done. We bought a building, gutted it, and wanted to create a really warm, minimal studio where flowers just took place. It was just, we're here, we're designing, and that's what happened. So about almost 6 years ago, we moved into our current location and really made it our own. But then obviously this year happened. And so we went from not doing retail for the past 6, 7 years really to now like, oops, I guess we've got to sell because our events aren't happening. Like I would say 90%, maybe a little more of our clients, as you know, kind of said, hey, we're going into 2021 and let's cross our fingers. So we are sort of pivoting again, I guess, and saying, okay, so we're going to do retail because we've got to pay bills, we've got to live, but how can we do that also differently? Because I did not like it the way we did it initially. So now we are curating kind of offerings. So it's not of like, here, pick this option. It's, I create something based on the season, based on color palettes, and I offer it, and people, like, if they like it, then they buy it, and it's worked out very well. There's also some control to that too, because we're still not open like Monday to Friday or Tuesday to Saturday. We do the offerings maybe once a month, and it's from this time to this time. So it works well with how we function, how we are, how we've been with events. We treat it very similarly. And so I feel like I'm finding a balance. So now it'll be interesting to see, like, moving forward, do we continue what we're doing this year? Or then once things feel like, okay, events are really kind of back on, do we hone in on that again? But I think we've been able, because we operate kind of, we have this balance where we give ourselves a lot of time. It kind of gives us some cushion to take a breath, see where we want to go, and make the decision kind of that feels best at the time.
One thing I love is the fact that you work with your mom.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like at like the Latino community is very like family oriented. Um, we do a lot for our family, we do a lot with our families, and I'm very close to my father, and he has had a huge influence on my business. Um, and so it's that much more special that when you are going through all of these transitions, which are hard, um, transitions are hard in business. Transitions are hard in life, but especially in business because there's so many other factors that rely on your decisions. And like it's so nice to have someone in your corner that's like family that you trust to make those decisions alongside you. We know each other from the wedding industry, which I feel like there's not a lot of Latinas in the wedding industry. And I feel like whenever I find someone that is like that I can relate to, I'm just like, yes, how can I support you? How can we be friends?
Right.
Um, and so that's another thing. And I think it's so amazing that you have like walked alongside your mom through all of these transitions. So I want to talk a little bit more about like the relationship aspect of it, because I mean it's for me it'd be the dream to like work with my family, to work with my father, to like just have everyone with me, like working, having fun, being profitable. But I also know that there's a lot of like emotions tied to that when you work with family. So how was it when you started working with your mom, and how has that transition been through along the way?
Yeah. So yeah, for sure, I think you will not have a better cheerleader. And we are each other's like cheerleaders. Like, there's no one who's going to support you in the same way. And also just with this certain purity too, right? So I mean, definitely, like, the support system is amazing. But I do think, like, one of the keywords you said, like, emotions. Emotions can be so high. And especially my mom and I are both very strong willed, very opinionated, very, yeah, we're very passionate. And so, we gel though, surprisingly, because, we growing up, we always had just kind of like this difficult relationship because I wanted to do things how I wanted to do them, obviously. And I mean, that's just like mother daughter, parent child issues. But I surprisingly, when I came on board, it worked really well because there was also complete trust. And growing up for me, it was like, knowing I could always trust my mom, and vice versa. And I'm going to get a little emotional because about when was it? 2016. So 4 years ago, she was diagnosed with cancer, and we had moved into this space, and it just blew us away. My mother is the rock of our home. But it was like the first time where it's like, it's my turn. Like, I need to step up. I need to give her the security that she's always given me. So sure enough, we got through that year, and thankfully, she's cancer free, and we're 4 years in past that. So we're really hoping, that she remains that way. But I felt like that was a massive transition, right? Like, we are here, we're like kind of in a newish studio, kind of trying to figure some new things out in our new space. And then there's this huge, huge life moment that happened. This huge, I think for us in that moment, it felt really, really difficult, really devastating. But we made her health a priority, and that's where the balance and the decision to just do events really and cut out the retail, it brought us into how much we value our time and our flexibility. And that year I did what I had to, did what, we did the events that we had to. But her health was just always the priority. So if it meant taking on less that year, that's what we did. It meant taking care of her. And then she bounced back. And I think it's funny, like this year, and I kept telling her, it's okay, we're going to be fine. And I'm here and we're going to get through this. And, we did. So this year, it's funny, like when everything happened in March, I right away got nervous because it's like you're getting all these phone calls like we're going to postpone our wedding. Thankfully, most of my clients postponed, but you're thinking, what's going on? What are we going to do? How are we going to get through this year? And I think having gone through what we did when she got her diagnosis and went through her treatment, she was like, it's fine. And I'm like, what do you mean it's fine? It's not fine. Like, we don't know what's going on. She's like, it's fine. And I think that I was like, you know what, you're right. We went through that, and at the end of the day, as long as we have our health, as long as we have each other, we're going to be fine. And I think I don't know if anybody else could give me that assurance than like a parent. And she did that. She was just like, we're going to be okay. And I think she reels me back in when I'm about to like, oh my God, how are we going to get through this? How are we going to do this? She reels me back in. It's okay, which is funny because that's not how she was when I was growing up. But obviously the wisdom from all these years of experience, and I think that like that balances up. It's like okay, she's right. We're gonna be okay. We're gonna figure things out. We've been in this 18 years, and this, even though this pandemic is unlike anything we've been through, at the end of the day, it's our health and our family. And that has always been number one. So we're going to continue to keep that number one. So I think, yeah, there's times where emotions can run high, but I feel like we both are there to kind of, when needed, to be there, to be an anchor for the other one and say, it's okay. You're amazing. We've got this. We've got this. And there's no better trust. So yeah, it's a journey. It's been a journey being working with my mom for sure.
That's so beautiful. And it's so funny to see how our parents are so different when we're adults
Yeah.
than when we were kids. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, who are you? I travel a lot with my father, and I'm just like, you're so fun.
Why weren't you like this when we were younger? For sure. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I feel like maybe they have less stress because they don't have to like
Oh,
worry
yeah.
about us staying alive.
No, I think they're like, I did my job. You're good. Cool. Let me just enjoy you, right? Let me just enjoy you as an adult, as a person. So, I mean, that part's fantastic. But yeah, no, the family thing, like for the most part, I would say it's really positive. But I always do tell my mom that we just become like central. Like people pop in, like, hey, what's up? Because it's like almost another home, the studio. And I'm like, but I'm working. And they're like, oh no, I'm just hanging out. And which is like, there's something I love about that, because I'm super tight with my brothers and but there's depending on how busy it is, it's like you're like, this is a job. I swear to you, this is a job. But it's because it's like me and my mom, so this is home. It's just another home for people to stop in and hey, how's it going? And for the most part, I think that's wonderful. It's wonderful that people feel like when they come to the studio, when they come to our work, they're coming to home, right? It's like almost a second home base. So it's nice. But yeah, there's definitely days where it's like I need to get stuff done. Let me get my stuff done. So yeah, a balance.
I know that you talked about like we as a collective whole like world are going through this huge transition period and like huge obstacle that we've all like especially as business owners have had to navigate through. But before this, I want to ask like were there any other obstacles or challenges that you encountered especially when you were transitioning from like having a storefront flower shop to focusing on events, especially in the wedding space because that's a huge market, that's a completely different like wheelhouse.
I think um, it felt a little lonely at times because I didn't know anyone who had done this. So I was always, questioning myself. Am I doing this right? Am I pricing right? Am I really good enough? Especially because I do think there aren't, like you said, I don't know many Latina designers. I No, I don't. It's very, very probably can count them on one hand. And I think so it felt a little like I don't know how to go about doing this. Like, am I doing it right? And yeah, like, and I think that, yeah, like that, am I good enough? Because it's not like I trained to be a floral designer. It's something I kind of threw myself in, right? So I think that that was challenging. And I do think like in the beginning too, for us, it was really imperative that we're from Pilsen. I live here. My mom lives here. This is where we grew up and we were going to stay here. So we started here in Pilsen. We're still here in Pilsen. And early on, especially when you're trying to book weddings, higher budget weddings, it was sort of we were told like, but you're in Pilsen, so it's almost like you can't. And this was like in the early, like obviously like 2000s, because people associate Pilsen differently now. But I mean, it was that sense of like, no, you're not located in Lincoln Park. Why are you charging what you charge? And that was really off-putting. It's like, but I'm giving you the same quality. I'm using the same flower, and it's still the same work. But because you were in Pilsen, it was sort of like that didn't go together. Like you could not be high end and be here, you know. And I got that from like I got pushback. I definitely got that pushback. So also trying to tell myself, no, 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 stick to your prices. You are worth this. If they don't agree with that, that's on them. But you are worth this. What you are providing, it has value. So having to tell myself that, and yeah, so things like that too. And it's interesting. One thing I think back to is early on, somebody with the best of intentions. Well, I don't know, but it didn't come from a bad place. Said, whatever you do, and this is kind of when I was first starting, just don't include kind of the Spanish like in just make everything in English, put everything in English, because then I think because it was almost like, but because then they'll associate you with a higher end product, right? And I was just like, well, okay, that doesn't seem to make sense. Um, but I was just like, and I know it's interesting because I know they thought they were helping me out by saying that, but it was just so contradictory because, but at the end of the day, that's what it felt like. You're saying to put something in Spanish, to speak Spanish, to write Spanish, to be implicit is somehow subpar. So yeah, and I think since I've always grown up, it's like, oh yeah, okay, I'll show you. And no, we're not. And I think that definitely was something we had to work through and just kind of prove yourself and say, no, we are worth that. And you're not going to minimize be based on your misconceptions. And I love that now, like I don't know how many years later, it's much more embraced. You see more people, embracing, their heritage, their ethnicity, their culture, and putting it out there. And nobody, well, at least in my circle or in, whatever my bubble is, like people don't bat an eye and say like, ooh, why did she write that in Spanish? Why did she talk so much about her culture? Things like that. I feel like now it's like, yeah, let's embrace it. Let's do it, which is wonderful. But that really was something early on when when it wasn't so accepted, when really it was more, you need to assimilate. Don't necessarily cause waves. Don't, just be kind of like what mainstream was. So having to go through that, and also just to say no, like changing the perception of what high end meant, what quality meant. So I think that kind of was something we've always had to kind of work through. And I think we've established that Flor del Monte has a wonderful reputation of beautiful flowers, and also very, very, very open to that. We are Mexican American, we are Latinas, we embrace who we are, we love our community. So I'm happy we've been able to retain all that, and that now it's viewed upon in a much better light.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like exactly what you said. The wedding industry is very lucrative, and it's very like it's unique because it like people that even I have spoken with, like potential clients, like it's like I was made to feel bad that I did not have a studio where people could meet with me in like the or Lincoln Park or like the more affluent communities. There's more wealth in the north side of Chicago than there is in the south side of Chicago. And we can like talk about why that is, the policies in place that have kept it like that. But I too, my father had a business in Back of the Yards, which is close to where Pilsen is. And so I grew up in that area, around that area, and felt very comfortable in that area. But I wouldn't know any other vendors that would say, like, oh, well, they might live closer to the south side, but they had studios on the north side.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And like I said, like, so definitely it was a very conscious choice to say, no, we're here. You want to work with us? You need to come see us here. Because there is beauty here. There is value here. You may not perceive it that way, but this is my home. And you're not going to tell me it's not valuable. So no, that was a very, when we found the second building, when we moved, we also made it very clear to our realtor, we do not leave Pilsen. We will not entertain any any other neighborhoods or any other buildings that aren't in here. So that was super critical to who we are as a business, and also just who we are as people too.
Yeah, that's so great. And it makes me like excited for like other people who are hearing this that they don't have to assimilate, even though everyone might be telling them that they have to assimilate.
Yeah,
And like that's a story that we've been told our whole life. It doesn't have to be that way. And you find more value and you're like happier in who you are and the business that you're building when you don't waver on those morals and those values.
yeah,
But yeah, so I know that you have talked about how your culture is so important to like who you are and especially your business, and like even the name Flor del Monte is in
mhm,
Spanish.
right.
Have you like are there any other ways, number one, that you are bringing your culture into your work, like the work that you produce? And is there any like still in 2020, like do people say like how do you pronounce that, or like what does this mean, like do they ask you?
They do ask, and I mean, so Flor del Monte is flower from the mountain. And really, the name comes because my parents are from a small town in Zacatecas named Monte Escobedo. So my mom started the business. I will say, had I started it, I don't think we'd be called Flor del Monte, but she started the business, right? So she had the name, and since it was a flower shop, it was flower from Monte. So that's essentially how the name came about. And people do ask us, how do you pronounce it? But I would say like that really is like less and less and less and less. Early on, I think we saw that more. And I think too, like I feel like I bring in our culture, and I wouldn't say it's so much in necessarily their design or anything, but in just also how we function. That you come here and it feels like family. That you come here and there's a warmth um, in how we operate, in how we really function more as a collective. You feel like a small community, and I think that is very indicative of just when I think of the way my parents grew up in their hometown, and everybody knew each other. And yeah, like our business, that's how we are with kind of our neighbors, and people know who we are. And it's quiet. Like it's not like because we're not really um I feel like we're people who we've been in this business, but we've done it also just kind of really quietly because we enjoy there's a certain level of peace um to kind of how we function. But yeah, like when you think about Latinos and also just like, generational. My daughter was basically raised here. She was born, it was my mom, me, and my daughter. And it reminded me of growing up with my grandma. My grandmother lived with us when I was younger, and just how we all just help each other, and how for me, that just feels very much a part of how I was raised. And having your grandparents be such an important role in your life. And when Inez was born, my daughter, she came straight with me to the studio. She was here. I would just basically design her strap to my chest. And then when I needed a break or anything, there were my mom's arms, and grandma was there to hold her. And so my daughter, all she knows is her mom and her grandmother in the studio until she started school. So for me, that part was so critical because she was able to get what I got as a youth, having my mother, having my grandmother, like that's who I knew, that's who loved me, that's who raised me. So the fact that our business can do that as well, can provide that, can create that culture, that space where yes, yeah, my daughter's here, and yes, she's going to be raised here alongside me working. I think that I could do that is fantastic. That my mom could be a part of that is fantastic. So I would say that we could create the culture we want that's based out of how we were raised here is really something that I enjoy thoroughly. And also just I think when you being in person, we have like Dia de los Muertos coming up within a week. And also just the amount of people we got wanting to buy cempasúchil, which is the Aztec marigold, and knowing that you play a big role in making sure that your community has access to that, can have that to celebrate their loved ones is wonderful. And like being able to tap into those moments, into those community celebrations. So I think that's where it makes me really grateful to kind of be where I am and to have, yeah, like have know that I can embrace my culture. It's my business. I don't have to shy away from it. I don't have to make excuses for it if this is who we are. So yeah, I think that's sort of how we try to just kind of make it a part of how we operate.
That's so beautiful and so powerful uh, to like pass on to your family, to your daughter.
No, her relationship with her grandmother is insane. Like, and I adore it. Like and just her relationship. You know what? Like to my mother, to this space, to this business, to where we are. It's funny. It's funny. Like, um, somebody. And I've also tried to minimize how much I post about Inez, right? But she really is just also a fabric of it. She's a part of this fabric, with my mom and myself. We were walking somewhere. This was a couple of years ago, and they're like, "Oh my God, that's Inez." And I'm like, "Okay, from Flor del Monte," and I was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Nice to meet you." It was just really weird. It was sweet, and it was so sweet. But I think, yeah, Inez is a part of Flor del Monte. My mom is, and I think people know that. It's just we are this business. Like it is who we are, which is why we operated with so much like there's a lot of tranquility and peace and balance because we live this. So I mean, I don't know how else to put it, but yeah. So that part was just really like wow. And then I also had to just be like, okay, I have to not post. Find a good balance and not post so much about my daughter because, I mean, this person is lovely, absolutely lovely. But I thought that was just like, oh my God, yeah, like, sin querer, like, Inez is Flor del Monte, right? So I love that we've been able to she's been able to embrace that.
Yeah, and I can just imagine like the impact that it's going to have on her as she grows, like in her into her adulthood. Like I know she's going to cherish that time and the lessons that she's learning along the way in building a business, and especially as a woman in this market. Um, yeah, thank you for sharing that. Um, all right, so I want to transition into the questions that I ask everyone. Um, I know that like I want to build this platform for um, the generations that come, the generations that are following. I grew up and I didn't have like a lot of examples. I grew up in the south suburbs of Chicago, and I had to assimilate and didn't have a lot of influences that I could look up to. It was just like, okay, you're going to go to college, you're going to get a degree, and this is what you're going to do. And I mean, I didn't follow in those exact footsteps that
Mm-hmm.
my father had. He, I think, saw me working at like uh, a high rise in a big company.
Right.
But I still feel that I have this responsibility now that I also have kids to be a voice in this space, to see that, to say like, okay, well, I'm a Latina, I have these experiences, and I have like my foot in both worlds. And how do I reconcile with that? How do I then like do the work myself so that I can elevate and empower other women who are doing amazing work, but also have that to pass on, have like encouragement to pass on to people that are coming up that want to see themselves represented. So, what would you say is that advice or encouragement that you received to get you to where you are?
Right. Well, wow. I think in terms of encouragement, I received, I would say throughout like most of my life, I did just receive a lot of like, constant, you can do this, you can do this. Like I never felt, and I mean, and I will say this, that, I mean, it's my mom, growing up, there's these notions like you very, very traditional, very conservative, you stay home, you do this, like you have to abide by certain ideas. Yes, but even like you go to college, well, you go to college if it's close by, or you do things like that. And I think my mom has always just been my number one supporter. She's like, you're gonna go where you want to go. I don't care what your dad says. It's okay. We'll figure it out. And it was always like I never felt like I had impediments. Like it was like you can do this. You can do this. So I think she kind of never let me feel like there was something I could not do. So I would do it. And I think like yeah, along the way, like the confidence she gave me is like the greatest gift, right? And it's interesting because I felt like I was always like maybe too confident growing up. But then I get into this world that I have no idea about because no one tells you about this world, the small business, wedding industry world where you're just like, I have no idea. And I do think like when I hear about now, I do enjoy seeing younger designers, creatives coming into this world, seeing them a little bit more vulnerable and saying, this is how I feel. I feel like I have imposter syndrome. So if anything, like I think when I see that, I would say, I applaud them for sharing that, for even knowing how to define those feelings. Because I think I definitely felt that. And then it wasn't until like I wouldn't even say I called myself a designer until probably 4 or 5 years ago. Mind you, I've been doing this 15, 16 years. So I think trying to get rid of that, trying to tell myself, no, you don't have to second guess yourself. Yes, you are worth that. Yes, you can be in this world. And I can't really pinpoint when that happened, but I definitely think all the relationships I've built along the way. And I never really networked much. So I think it's cultivating very key relationships. And it's those relationships that kind of push you forward, that give you kind of that cheering squad, that you've got this, you can do that. And I'd say that's kind of what helped kind of propel me. My husband as well, I think, has always just challenged me and said, no, like keep going, you've got this. So I think I have a very strong base. And what I feel is important too, and something that I wish I kind of had, was someone to say, hey, I have no idea what I'm doing. How did you do this? And that I felt like wasn't there. And nowadays, when I see, like I said, newer, younger creatives, if they reach out, I'm more than happy to talk. Yeah, let's talk. Just, what are your thoughts? What are your fears? What are you thinking? And I feel like I communicate. I've had, established a relationship with several young, kind of new small business owners. And I always tell them, and I'm like, you're always welcome in the studio. You can always swing by. We will drink some cafecito and just tell me what you're thinking, and just ask me if there's anything you really want to know. Because, like, I think the days where I'm just like, the days roll into another, but I'm like, we've been doing this for a while now. There's success in that, like the longevity of that. It's definitely not easy being a small business owner. So, really, if somebody wants to tap into what we've done and ask, I'm here. Like, I'm here, and let's talk about it, and kind of be a good support system for one another. So yeah, I would say just finding your team, finding your people is so critical. And being vulnerable and saying, I don't know. I don't know if this is right. But I'm gonna try anyway. And I will learn from that, and that's okay, you know.
I feel like there's a certain aspect, like it's at least when I was starting in business,
Hmm.
people would say like, "Hey, if you don't know, don't say anything. Like you gotta just pretend or figure
Right.
it out." And I'm like, "But I really don't know how to do
Right.
this like
Right.
specific thing. Like, can you just help me?"
Exactly.
Um, so yeah, I feel like it's good to like show that vulnerability and just be honest, like because we're gonna make mistakes, we're gonna know like not know how to do
Yeah.
something, and there's like it's okay to say, you know what, I don't know, let me get back to you,
Right.
or I'm sorry, this didn't work out, let me fix it, or how can I make this better for you? Um, so yeah, just being real
Mhm.
because we're human, and I think people like know that we're human and
Right.
things happen. And I tell my daughter like, hey, you're gonna mess up, but it's what you do after and
Exactly.
how you like address the situation that's going to make a difference.
Yeah.
um, so so yeah, that's great. um, yeah, I have really enjoyed our conversation. You have like, oh my goodness. I feel like I was getting emotional, like
Oh,
hearing some of your story. Um, so I really am grateful that you took the time to talk with me. Why don't you share where people can find you?
sure. Yeah. So we, I think I've mentioned numerous times, are located in Pilsen. We're right by Cermak and Damon, but we are appointment only. So definitely follow us on Instagram at Flor del Monte Inc. That would be the best way to kind of see what we're up to, what's going on. And always, feel free to send us an email too. You can email info@flordelmonte.com, and we'll get back to you. And yeah, hopefully you enjoy seeing all the flowers. We know we enjoy it. So,
Yeah. Thank you. And yes, her Instagram is so beautiful. And I love how like even in your stories you're sharing like just positivity and encouragement
yeah. Aw,
to
good.
other people.
Thank
Um, yeah. So if you don't follow her, go follow her. Um,
Thank you so much. And I do think, like, for most florists, they want to be photographers. Like, I think like half the time, like, and I see your beautiful work, and I'm just like, I would want to just sit and take pictures with flowers all day. Like, that's kind of just what I want to do. But yeah, so secretly, I think most florists want to be photographers too.
Well, your photos are beautiful, and I love them.
Thank you.
Um, anyway, thank you so much for taking the time
Oh,
to
thank you.
hang out with me, and and be flexible. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it.
All right, we'll talk later.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Oh my goodness, so much corazon in our conversation. I have ordered several bouquets from her this past year, and it was the beauty that I needed to bring me joy in 2020. I always try to make her flowers last as long as possible too. So if you're not already, give her a follow on Instagram for some daily beauty in your feed. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. You can find all of her information on the website elevatinglacultura.com. And if you enjoyed this conversation, please share, take a screenshot to share on Instagram at Elevating La Cultura or send me a DM. You can also comment on our YouTube video if you're watching online. I always like to hear from people and how they're resonating with the stories that I share. So go on. Enjoy the rest of your day, afternoon, evening, whenever you're listening, y nos vemos next week. Bye.